Good afternoon. Welcome to Japet Community Life Magazine. I'm sitting here with the mayor of Groveland. We're glad to have you here today, and we're going to get on the process and discuss about Friday, but first we want to fact check. So I'm going to allow you to speak to the audience and explain to them why you made decisions, what's going on, and then we'll go from there. Okay. You can look right there at the camera and we're ready to roll.
Okay. Anthony, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm Tim Laux. I'm currently the mayor of the city of Groveland, Florida. There's a few misconceptions or misunderstandings I'd like to clear up. I'm going to start with the city of Groveland's form of government. We're a council-manager form of government. The duties of the mayor, the vice mayor, and the council differ from city to city in the state of Florida. A lot of cities up north have what's called mayor-strong governments. In our case, ours is a council-manager government. And what that means is that we are elected to office. We hire a city manager to run our day-to-day operations. And what I'm going to do is read directly from our city charter real quickly to let you know what our powers and duties are as a mayor and council. And it's section 304 of the Groveland City Charter. And it clearly states, it says, duties of mayor and vice mayor. The mayor shall preside at meetings of the council, and shall be a member of the council, and shall be recognized as head of government for all ceremonial purposes, and for the governor's purpose of military law, and for service of process, execution of contracts, deeds, and other documents, and as a city official to designate to represent the city in all agreements and other entities. He shall have no other administrative duties other than to carry out the responsibilities herein. We're also very limited in our administrative side. The mayor and council is based on the policy side of the fence. Our limitations: we have no power to remove or appoint any of the members of the city office or employees other than the city manager. All of our powers are subordinated to our city manager. We are free to express our views freely and discuss with the city manager at any time pertaining to appointment or removal of such officers or employees, or appointment or removal of department heads and other employees by the city manager, who will advise the council member of his actions within 72 hours. We're forbidden by state law and the city charter to interfere with administration, except for the purpose of inquiries or investigations. The council or its members shall deal with officers and employees directly through the city manager. A lot of misconceptions are a mayor is completely in charge of the city and runs the city. The mayor is in charge of setting policy and running the meetings. We have the authority to declare martial law or state of emergency should one occur. Above and beyond that, we have absolutely no authorities to do anything. A lot of times people running for election will say when they get elected they're going to change this, this, and this. Each and every person, including the mayor on the city council, has one vote, and one vote only. So for a candidate to stand up and say they're going to change this, they can't change anything without the majority of the vote of the council. The only power that we have to hire, appoint, remove, or talk to is the city manager of the city that we hire. I'm going to go over to a little bit of authorities and duties of the city manager. And I'm not going to read all of them because they're about 5 pages long.
Don't do that.
But the city manager shall appoint, and when he deems necessary for the good of the city, suspend or remove employees and administrative officers provided under this charter, or otherwise provided by law, or personnel and rules adopted under the charter. He may authorize administrative officers who are subject to his direction and supervision to exercise these powers with respect to subordinates and officers in the department. The city manager has a wide variety of duties. They are to keep the council informed of all actions that are going on in the city. They are to try to generate new business and new growth within the city. They are to keep a tranquil and harmonious workplace within the city. They are to make sure that policies and procedures are up to date. Their duties are to make sure that the employee manual, the charter, and the Florida state laws are adhered by strictly, and to have a full and complete understanding of those. A lot of times when we have a problem in the city, if they can't get the answer from the city manager or from one of the staff, they'll immediately call the mayor. Unlike a lot of the cities in our northern states, we are not a mayor-strong government. We are actually a mayor-weak government, and again, a council-manager form of government. Our only authority is to hire a city manager to run our day-to-day operations and to bring us the policies and procedures that he proposes to be put in. We do have the ability to set the tax rates, impact fees, and other charges that are within the city. We set those based on the budget that the city manager brings us once a year. They'll bring it to us and we'll set the millage rate and we will set the budget. But other than that, we simply don't have any powers and authorities.
Okay, so let's break it down in layman's terms.
Okay.
You the mayor, then it's the city manager, but he basically runs everything, am I correct? I want to make sure we're correct on that. And then you guys just set the policies, what you say?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, since that word has came up in one of our other forums, what is the policy to you? Is that something, let's say I wanted to, and I spoke about this, if we wanted a form, a complaint form, how long would we need to get a policy or get that in effect? What would we need to do?
If there was a complaint form that needed to have official vote taken on it, you would simply contact the city manager with the proposal. He would analyze that, he would draft the form, he would bring it to the city council for acceptance or denial, or possibly our comments on to modify that form. At that point it would come back again, and if it was in an ordinance form it would require 2 votes. If it was a simple resolution, we could vote on it at that particular time.
Okay, now, let's do this, because we do have people who, what you just said, resolution and that, please break it down.
Okay.
We have the knowledge. If you don't do it, then we got another issue, because they're still not gonna understand it, and we want people to really get knowledge.
Okay. The primary difference between a resolution and an ordinance is a resolution is more easily repealed. An ordinance is more of a permanent fixture within the city charter, or not the charter, in the city code of regulations.
Okay.
Primarily that is the only difference. They both carry the exact same equal power. A ordinance takes 2 readings, which gives the public 2 opportunities to comment on it, and they are somewhat more binding.
So, I want to make sure I have this straight. Now, it could get done if someone drafts something. After the meeting on, we're going to get a little ahead of ourselves, but after the meeting on Friday, do you think maybe we need some sort of complaint form, or how do you feel about that? Should that be something that maybe we're going to have to look into getting, so people can keep things on record and know what's going on if they have an issue?
Primarily, the complaint process is handled through the city manager's office.
Okay, so everything falls back on the city manager.
Yeah, they are documented. The most proper way to put in a complaint or concern, or even a suggestion of something to be done, is to contact the city manager's office. You can contact one of the council members or myself. We'll take that and immediately forward that to the city manager to act on. And if he sees merit in it, then he will bring it back to the city council for discussion.
So let's make sure our listeners have it so far. This is a city manager, more or less, have more power than the mayor.
In reality,
and you
yes.
guys,
we have the final say.
You have the final say, and you also just deal with the policies.
Right.
Okay, let's move on now. Friday, huge long meeting. Hopefully I got it all. I had to switch cameras. Were you satisfied with the outcome? How did you feel about the outcome of the meeting? Was it what you expected or what you thought it may be as far as the reaction from the community?
On Friday's meeting, I called that meeting to evaluate numerous complaints I'd received over the months about our city manager, about our police department, and about a lot of the things that have been happening in the city. When I receive an inordinate amount of complaints like that, it's my duty to ask the city manager to discuss them with me in person. I do that. I also like to discuss them with the entire council. And one thing a lot of people don't understand is why didn't we have that meeting in private?
That's the other question, right? So answer that while you're going.
Unfortunately, the state of Florida has the Sunshine Law. The Sunshine Law absolutely forbids the council members discussing any subject between themselves or with, as a body in a closed meeting without public notice and public involvement. Everything that we do or vote on has to be done in a public forum, and that's based on the Florida Sunshine Law. If we don't do that, we're in violation of that particular law, which is punishable. So unfortunately, these kind of meetings do have to be held in the public, and public comment has to be allowed, which I think public comment should be allowed at every meeting. But we're not afforded the opportunity of having private council meetings without the public involvement.
And even with the Sunshine Law, as you just stated, the Sunshine Law, when it comes to you guys meeting each other, you can't even do that, am I correct? So what I want to do, while you're talking on that subject, if you could just break that form down for the people to understand that too.
Okay. It's relatively simple. If a council member, for instance, wants to have dinner with another council member and there is no city business discussed, that's perfectly fine. But two council members cannot discuss city business that's pending or may be pending outside of the public eye.
Okay.
That is definitely a violation of the Sunshine Law, and should that be happen, it can be, a complaint can be filed with the Ethics Commission of Florida, and they do thoroughly investigate each and every complaint that comes in. You try to avoid any perception of that. A lot of times, if you're talking to another council member, somebody may perceive that as a Sunshine Law violation. But if you were not discussing city business that is pending or will be impending in the future with the city council, it is not a sunshine violation. So you have to be very cautious. My rule of thumb is I try to avoid that completely from the aspect of public perception. They don't know what you're discussing, so if it's perceived as a violation, an ethics complaint could be filed and you could be investigated by it. So the best rule of thumb is to try to avoid that at all costs.
Okay. So, let's go back to Friday now. You already explained the Sunshine Law, Friday meeting. I know you had to call it now, we recognize it. Do you feel that, in your mind, I gather you already made the decision because it's under investigation, correct? So you made the decision to push forward as far as investigation on Friday. Right.
Under the city manager's contract, anytime that an issue like this comes up with a possible disciplinary action or a termination of contract action, his contract reads that he has a right to a public hearing. In order to set the public hearing, you have to have a public meeting to set that, because it takes a majority of the vote to set that particular meeting.
Okay, so it's no different than you getting something passed. You still gotta.
We've still gotta have.
You can't just make it on your own. You've got it. So Friday, basically, if I'm hearing you right, you can correct me. Friday was just a meeting to see if you was going to have another meeting for hearing. Was that clear in the beginning that you said Friday was just a hearing? You made it clear.
Mm-hmm. It was very clear. It was on the agenda. It was to set the meeting, to basically set the public hearing. We had only been notified, and we didn't know that until about an hour before the meeting. We'd only been notified that our city manager was going to request a public meeting, and at that point we were obligated to grant him that under his contract, which we did. A lot of people have asked, there was no reasons given. That particular meeting was not the reasons to be given or the reasons not to be given.
Okay, could you elaborate on that a little bit for my reading? So you're saying, I want to make sure I got this right. That meeting was not to give a reason or to give a reason. It was just set to set a date.
Exactly.
Okay, so even though you allow public whistling, it really almost like they don't have to repeat what they got to say again.
Right. Right, and that's where the meeting got a little bit out of hand from the aspect of, I don't think people recognize that. But before we vote on any particular subject, Florida law requires us to have public comment. The public comment is supposed to stay on the agenda item.
So is that the reason why you did the meeting fast, like in 48 hours?
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to find out from you.
Exactly.
Is that your reasoning for that?
Absolutely.
Because I want everybody to understand how the law works down here and why you judged it. So you gave him 48 hours, or 45, whatever, to meet with you. And by his contract, you're saying that he decided that you guys need to hold, what you said, a public, not a hearing. The hearing is next month.
Yeah, exactly. We had to
But
set
this
a
was a
date.
pre.
Right.
meeting. So really everything you've done for those 5 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what we tried. That's what we tried to explain to the citizens that were there. But under the First Amendment rights, we are required to allow public comment.
Even though you already made a decision for the trial, I mean not the trial, but
The hearing.
The hearing.
Uh-huh.
Even though you made a decision for that, you still need to hold a meeting for this for 5 hours instead of just saying the hearing is going to be, and you're going to have time again in the hearing.
Right.
So basically, they're going to repeat themselves. Whoever had a comment going to repeat themselves.
They're going to repeat themselves on it, and that's something I couldn't get across to the public. Is we were there to set the time for the hearing, and when I would interrupt people and ask them to stay on subject, they wouldn't do that, and we're trying to present cases that weren't even pertinent to the agenda item we were talking about.
I want to make sure I hear this. That's why, and you can correct me, that's why there was no evidence presented at that time, because it's not the hearing.
It's not the hearing.
But when the hearing do come, is all of this, is the agenda going to be where the public can see what's going on, or is that just going to be, how does that work? How does the hearing process? I mean, is it going to be like, I come in, I grab a paper, I see what he did, or is that only going to be for the people in the council, and then it's presented? How does all of that work?
Right, and that's another misconception by the public in a lot of cases. The council does not set or prepare the agenda. The city manager, in this case the interim city manager, will be preparing the agenda. We can only add or suggest that things be added to the agenda. We can ask, and if they see merit in it, they can add it. The city attorney can add or take away from the agenda.
So explain Friday. That's one of the questions that came up. Help me with that. You had one agenda, and we had one agenda. So what?
And you're referring to the administrative leave?
I'm referring to 2 different agendas.
Okay.
Remember, the public say, "Oh, we don't have this agenda," and you says it's on mine.
Right.
I'm not trying to quote you, but I thought you had one, and then it was a mix-up with you and the lawyer, the city lawyer.
That was
going back
actually
and
my
forth.
notes that were on my
Oh, okay.
agenda. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. My agenda, what we were doing, we were looking at the disposition of the city manager.
Mm-hmm.
He requested the hearing, which was, we found out about an hour before. With him requesting the hearing, we needed to investigate. They wanted time to investigate their defense.
Right.
We needed time to investigate further into what we were doing also. We felt that we needed an unfettered way to do that without outside influence or influence from the city manager within the city hall period. So what we did is perfectly normal, and it's done in every aspect of executive work.
So
is we put him on-
clarify what exactly was done, because here's the rumors, and let's just call it. You dismissed him, or you suspension him, or you sent him home. Clarify, because here's the thing, nobody, I'm be honest with you, I've talked to people.
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there.
And I'm trying to figure out what exactly is it.
What we did is none of what you had just stated.
Because he's not fired, correct?
No.
Right, okay, so clear this up for me.
The terms that you just used, none of the
None
above happened. Okay.
Okay.
What we merely did is we put Mr. Jones on administrative leave, fully paid with all benefits.
Okay, so you're going on a little vacation, basically, until
Exactly.
you're
He's
able to.
Right, right. He's on basically a paid vacation until October 7th that does not reflect against any of his earned vacation.
So let me ask you this, if he, let's say, comes out on top, is he going to be allowed to try to catch up these days? Or is it just something
There's no
that we
days.
just roll straight from there?
There's no days to catch up. He's being fully paid his entire salary during his
I was
period
talking
of
about
time.
work-wise. Like if I take off for a day, and tomorrow I got 2 days to try to catch up on.
Oh, absolutely.
So you guys not going to grade him on that.
Oh,
If he
no,
does,
no,
he
no.
just, he comes back to work.
Right.
It's boom. You're just gonna have to try to do your best to catch up,
Right.
or you're gonna, okay.
Right.
All right, okay.
Now,
So,
the city, his contract and the city charter gives us several ways to terminate a city manager or to terminate a contract. A lot of people don't understand Florida is an at-will at state, and I'm not
Correct.
sure what at-will means. I'll explain that to the best of my ability.
that means you get fired without a cause, right?
At will
No.
is a term that's in the Florida Constitution, actually.
Hmm.
If you give me 1 second, I just.
Okay. So while he's looking for the information, I want to make sure I run it down. He's not fired.
No.
He's not dismissed. He's not canceled out. He's on a leave, sort of like a vacation.
He is on what's known as administrative leave
Administrative leave, okay, with pay.
with pay,
Wow, okay.
full
All right.
and complete pay.
So that's great to hear that from you, because I want to make sure everybody actually understands
Right.
that he's not dismissed.
No.
Okay. All right. So, this other thing is, he's responsible. Do you feel like he's responsible as you look for that? I know you're looking for a
Yeah.
quote. Police department is under him, correct?
Correct.
Everything here is basically under him.
Correct.
Works, city works, everything.
Yeah,
And he's got to
every single
follow up
department.
on everything.
Mhm.
The reason why I asked you earlier, was it a complaint form? Because how do they go about, or is it just something they could write or email him to say, look, we had an issue with the police, blah, blah, blah?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm asking you.
Sure. Yeah, anytime that there's a complaint within the city, from any department, regardless if it's police, fire, or utilities, city hall, any. they
So it is a
contact-
write-up about it, it's not,
Sure.
so it's not a format. Up in
No.
where I come from, you had a format that said complaint form.
Right.
So we could write something up like we have here and submit it, and that's it right now.
Right, the problems that we were having is the complaints were being submitted and they weren't being acted on. And then they were submitted, unfortunately, to me and to the rest of the council. At that point, it's our obligation to resubmit them to the city manager for action to be looked into.
Okay.
A lot of times this wasn't happening, a lot of times they were being shuffled aside. And I'm not talking on 1 or 2 occasions, I'm talking on dozens and dozens and dozens.
So, did you find it yet?
Not like that.
Okay, so we just keep on rolling.
Yeah,
So
you-
anyway, as you read the code, some of the code, you also read the sunshine law. And I'm sure we got that now. And then back to your city manager. Your city manager now is on paid leave. He's coming back when? October the 7th for the trial, or I mean not the trial,
The hearing,
the hearing.
the hearing that he requested.
Hearing, and then that will make a decision, and then of course you guys are gonna present that to the community, your finding,
Right.
okay? And then will the community have that, or is that something, as far as the finding, will there be a sheet in the back with the agenda with the finding on it?
There again,
Or is that just gonna be in front where you guys at?
the council does not prepare the agendas, so
Right.
I will not be able to
answer on that
answer
question.
on that. We're
Wow.
we're given the agendas just as everyone else. But I did find what I was looking for.
Okay, well, go ahead and read it.
Yeah, our city charter states in section 4.02, appointment, removal, and compensation. It says that the city council shall appoint a city manager for an indefinite term by majority vote of all council members. It also says removal, the city council may remove the manager by majority vote of all council members, and upon demand of the manager, a public hearing prior to the vote must be held. The situation with that is Mr. Jones did request a public hearing, and we honored the city charter and his contract,
Right.
which was within our obligations to do. The contract, Mr. Jones's contract, says
Now, I assume that,
says there are 3 reasons to terminate Jones's contract.
okay,
And one is with reason, and it lists various reasons that a contract can be terminated. And then you have one without reason, and then by resignation.
Okay.
So there's many ways to do that and not to do that. And, I'll just give you one. For with reason, one is misfeasance, malfeasance, nonfeasance, neglect, misconduct, conscious disregard for the interests of the city of Groveland without limitations to performing the city manager's duty. Another one says that
Okay, so let's do this. On Friday's meeting, most of it was concerning the credit cards, okay, in the PD police department, correct? So let's get to that real quick because that's some of the reason we're here. Now I understand why you had the meeting. We already done that. The credit card issue. How are you going to go from here to fix that issue, or are you going to leave that on the acting city manager to report back to you on how you guys are doing?
we're going to recommend policy
Okay.
to correct that, and I don't mind sharing.
You share your thoughts.
Yeah, sharing my thoughts with the viewers at this point. My recommendation on that is to eliminate credit card usage in the city and go to PO numbers. Have the city manager have a credit card available for emergencies, which may be checked out and used by an employee in case of emergency. But I am certainly not a proponent and was not aware there were 17 credit cards out in the city that every department had until this particular thing took place.
So are you going to investigate the spending on them, or is this something that you're just going to?
We're in the process of
investigating that.
investigating
Now, is all that going to be also done on October the 7th, or how are you going to go about letting the public know on that one?
No, on October 7th, that particular meeting is scheduled solely for the disposition of this.
For the disposition. And maybe after that, are you going to get back on the issue of letting the public know, or while your investigation, are they going to get? In other words, are we going to get as people who live in these surroundings? Are the people of Groveland going to get the explanation how much was spent on those cars, or if there was any monkey business?
Oh,
or
absolutely.
do you guys got to further another investigation to find out what was spent, why it was spent, who did what? Suppose there's more to it.
Right, the credit card policy is currently being looked at and
Okay.
revised, and any credit card spending within the city is public record.
Mm.
It is being looked into to make sure there is no abnormalities in it, and to date, we're not aware of any more. Hopefully we don't have any more. I don't know that yet because that particular investigation.
And does that go through the city manager too, like the spending? You know, for instance, you gave me a credit card today for the city. I went out, and of course I went to Hawaii and came back, and I did some other stuff. If that's on that card, are you going to check all the cards, or who's going to check to verify that all the spending was done correct? Or is that the city manager's job?
That is the city manager's job.
Okay.
He'll probably have the finance, or she, whatever the case may be, whoever is the city manager, will have the staff look into that to verify it all. Each person that received a credit card signed a document that clearly stated if they used the credit card for personal use, they would be terminated.
So are we as a public going to be able to get that, or would I need to go and file for it to get it so I can give it to the people here and let them know about it, or was that at another meeting you was just going to hand out some paper and say, here's what we're spending, or how do we go about doing it?
No, what we'll do is offer an overview of the report. If people want the individual records, they're more than welcome to request them to the public records division, and they're readily available.
So now we got the credit card situation, like you say, y'all going to investigate that further and handle that. The police issue with the police thing, and of course I'm hearing that the entire video was not being seen. We don't know what happened before, and we don't know what happened after. So we're still investigating that. Is that what you're doing now?
Right, we are still investigating that particular issue.
Okay, so when you do get it, will we be able to pull up, or has this officer had a lot of records on this stuff? Is all that going to be available to the community to
any
find
record, any record that's within the city is
public?
Public, And so anytime a citizen wants to know a public record, they simply request to the city clerk. We're obligated under Florida law to provide that record to them.
Okay.
And that's primarily what operating under the sunshine means. It literally means exactly what it implies.
Okay.
And so everything that we do is subject to public scrutiny. It's also in public review.
Okay, so let me ask you this. We realize, as you said earlier, that's on the manager. Okay, so if the manager came to you, this is just hypothetically, if he came to you and said this was going on and there may be a video out there, would you have still had to, you would have had to hold a hall meeting, or how would you have went to take care of this?
That was an administrative issue.
Okay.
The police department issues are all administrative issues,
Okay.
and they're the duties of the city manager to take care of.
The video is 2015.
Right.
Okay.
Apparently, the city manager did not take care of these situations, and the same with the credit card issue. We did not know anything about a credit card issue being used for improper expenditures until a gentleman named Sam Smith, if anybody knows who it happens to be, please inform the rest of us because we don't, brought it to light. What bothered me about that was the city manager did know about that, and he didn't disclose it to the council.
So the proper procedure would have been what? For him to call y'all and call a meeting, or do it at the city hall?
He could have called us individually and informed us of it.
Okay, so let's bring that now.
Because we weren't voting on it.
Okay, so if he called you individually, he can do it, but he can't have all y'all come here
No.
and do it. Part of the sunshine law, correct?
Part of the sunshine
Okay, all right.
Correct.
Then now you're helping me out. So he could have called you individually. He could have called you starting off with you and said, "Look, credit card been done."
Right. We have an issue. I'll call each council member. We'll get a consensus if we need to have a workshop or a meeting about it. Then we'll get a consensus from the council to have a meeting. The only time, and I want to clarify something, the only time that I can call a meeting without council consensus, without having 3 or 2 other people agree with me, is if I have to call an emergency meeting for a disaster of some kind. For instance, we have a hurricane, or if we have a tornado, we have some kind of major disaster in the city. I can call a emergency meeting when it is going to affect the city of Groveland financially, or if it's going to put our citizens' safety in danger whatsoever. In this particular case, this was called as a special meeting, not an emergency meeting. They're 2 different entities. I had a majority vote on the council to do that. A meeting, any council member that sits at that table can call a special meeting.
So let me ask you this. Now that we've got the correct way, when it came to the police department, tell me exactly how you feel that should have been handled. I'm a cop. I do something. You don't see the whole video, but you do see what I'm doing. However, the remarks was, let's just call it, was wrong. So if I did this, and then it got back to my chief, this has been a year.
Right.
How do we prevent a year going by and get ahead of something? What do we need to do to make sure that never happens again, where you got that kind of reflection down here on Groveland? How do you get ahead of something like that? That's why I asked you, was it some part of the fire department should report it to the chief, and then maybe the chief could have reported to the police department, and then to the, is that the chain on if a police does something, or how does it roll? Because either way, they're going to look at you. You can tell me about the city manager runs the city, but either way, it's happening on your watch. I mean, I'm just.
And my only recourse is dealing with it through the gentleman that we hired to take care of these particular situations. If he is not doing his job correctly, that's what brings these issues up.
Okay.
So people can look at me all they want, and that's fine. But the problem is, unless I'm informed about them through the gentleman that we hired to run the city of Groveland, I cannot do anything about it.
So if you were informed on that incident, it would have been the same? If you was informed, let's say the police came and told the chief,
absolutely.
the chief told the manager, and then, so you still got to have another meeting?
No, if it would have been handled administratively like it should have been, I would have never had to have the meeting.
Wow. Even though the video got out?
I would have never had to have the meeting. All I needed to know is it was being handled internally. I have no authority or no bearing over the police department, fire department, or any other department.
So the only person the council have authority over is the city manager.
Exactly, that's it,
And the city manager runs the city literally.
literally. Yes.
Okay, now we're going
To simplify that, and the best way I like to put that to people, we have two sides of the fence. We have the policy side, and we have the administrative side. The city manager cannot set policy, and we cannot get involved in the day-to-day administration of the city.
Say that again.
We
So
have
you can't get involved, police department, fire department, not yours, one person.
one person. If Mr. Jones needs us to set, in this case, Mr. Jones, or whoever the city manager is, needs us to set a policy, repeal a policy, or modify a policy or an ordinance of any kind, all he has to do is to bring that to us, give us the justification of why he wants it done. We'll look at it, we'll research it, and each council member will individually vote on how they feel on that.
Okay.
If that never comes before us, we don't have the authority to ever vote on it.
Now, it's another one, and I gotta throw this out there. We've had 4 meetings with Mr. Jones. You are aware of this.
I am.
And here we go again. That's 5.
Actually, the truth of the matter is, we've had 3.
We've had, okay, so this one really wasn't
This
me.
is-
This was the set a meeting for.
Now, the truth of the matter is, I had called a meeting to review his performance.
Okay.
Mr. Councilman Raznick had called a meeting to look into his contract, and this is the 3rd meeting. So
But
I'm
this
not
is
quite
a
sure.
meeting.
It was a meeting, yes.
No, I mean Friday wasn't a meeting. It was more or less
Well,
a set date
right,
for.
on this particular issue,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So, out of all 3, and this has been asked, what made y'all decide to, in other words, the cost of the meeting? How do I put it? It was necessary. I'm trying to word this in a way, okay,
Right.
the cost of the meeting, the taxpayers are picking up, okay? And yet you called another one, or 3 or 4. We couldn't have done all this in one meeting, or was you given more chances, or how does, in other words, basically everybody wanted to, why all the meetings? Let's just put it right like
The
that.
meetings were to, the one that I called initially was to tell Mr. Jones that the council, which I believe as a whole, or a majority of them anyway, informed Mr. Jones they weren't happy with the direction he was leaving the city in.
Okay.
And that needed improvement. Now people said you didn't specify an exact improvement method. We hired a professional city manager to run the city. We did not hire a trainee.
Okay.
We did not hire a trainee, and that's very, very important. Mr. Jones' credentials stated that he was fully capable of running a city of this size. It stated that he had been an assistant administrator, which is an equal to an assistant city manager in the state of Iowa. We looked through his paperwork and applications. We found out that he actually had another title also, which I will not go into at this
Right.
particular moment.
We don't need to.
When we hire a professional, the CEO of the city, we expect them to be well-versed enough on our laws and our ordinances and the way that Florida government runs and Lake County and Groveland government runs to be able to do that without us having to be a micromanager and explain every single step of the way.
Okay. Now the other question was thrown out there. At one of your meetings, y'all said y'all was going to pull him to the side. Did he ever get pulled to the side?
I've talked to Mr. Jones probably 30 to 40 times on deficiencies individually, trying to correct him. I defended Mr. Jones in the first meeting. There was a impression that I got from that particular city council was to dismiss him at that time. I defended Mr. Jones, and my comment was very simple. I said, Mr. Jones, before we go any further into doing big new projects and stepping outside, we need to get our own house in order. We need to make sure that our own city is functioning at the best possible rate it possibly can. It didn't happen. The second meeting, I was the vote that I had 2 votes to terminate Mr. Jones. I was the only vote that protected Mr. Jones at that point.
Okay.
Mr. Jones is so thankful for that. He stopped by my house and thanked me for doing that and promised me he would not let me down.
Okay.
And I said, Mr. Jones, I said, you have great potential, you have great visions. I said, I believe in what you're doing. It got worse after
Okay.
that. It got progressively worse. The police department, complaints that went on for months coming out of the police department when I was first made aware of back in December of 2015. I suggested to the city manager that he stay out of it, our HR department stay out of it, that we hire an independent outside agency to come in and look into these complaints. That way we remain neutral and the complaint resolution is not biased one way or another.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get ready to give you a minute. You know we got about 9 left.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you one question, which is the final one, because I know you got somewhere and I have somewhere. Right now, where we stand, either way, how are you going to move the city forward?
I believe we're in the process of moving the city forward currently.
Okay.
We've had numerous, and I counted 26 negative press articles and at least 15 negative press articles on operation from the administrative side of the city. We had complaints from the police department that lingered for months and months and months uninvestigated. We still got some out that are uninvestigated. Our city's reputation is bad. Our council has been subject to ridicule, humiliation, and disrepute based on actions that we had absolutely no control over. Again, I want to reiterate, our only recourse is to have these public meetings with the city manager to try to correct them at his level. It is his obligation to correct them at the administrative level. He's been given 2 opportunities to do this in the past and has failed to do it at both times. It left me no choice but to take action and have this meeting in order to protect the best interests of the majority of the public, not the select few. I'm not here to cater to special interest. I'm not here to cater to certain individuals that may have not liked the way that we handle things. We have to handle things completely and 100% within the Florida law, which we are presently doing. I would also like to iterate that we have the ability to dismiss Mr. Jones with cause and without cause, and or Mr. Jones has the opportunity to resign. I had asked Mr. Jones to resign to save himself the humiliation of that meeting. He absolutely refused to do that. He chose to go through the humiliation of that meeting and delay. So if anyone wants to talk about expensive meetings, Florida state law requires each public meeting is held in that kind of a forum. It's unfortunate, but that is what the state of Florida dictates. We felt we're completely within the law to do that. Mr. Jones also has applied for other positions in the past and was turned down from them while still being employed in the city, so it made me wonder if Mr. Jones actually wanted to be employed here or not. I don't know. That's the decision, and there's no problem with an employee applying for something else and trying to better themselves. For myself, I don't feel that Mr. Jones is leading the city in the same direction that the council is trying to lead the city. I consider Mr. Jones a friend still. I just don't consider him to be a city manager that's going to be able to lead the city of Groveland in the direction it needs to be. There's been too much controversy, too much turmoil, too many lawsuits that have been filed from things that they should not have been filed for, that could have been handled much better by a experienced and seasoned city manager. I believe by what we're doing right now is going to allow the city to begin to heal. I know currently if we leave it the way it is, it's going to get progressively worse. Our job is to protect the taxpayers' money. We do not work for Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones works for the city and for the council solely. We work for the people that elected us. It's our obligation to protect your tax dollars and make sure that they are not wasted any longer. Other than that, it's an unfortunate situation, but in any employment contract or any employment at will in the state of Florida, if you're not performing up to expectations of your employers, they do have the right to dismiss or suggest corrective action. Corrective action has been suggested on numerous occasions and has not been corrected at all. I didn't appreciate being misled on the police investigations, and I most certainly did not feel being misled on the credit card issue was a fair or just way to do it. For myself, I am a forgiving person. I give people every opportunity they possibly can, but when they continue to take advantage of my good nature and begin to affect the taxpayers, the city of Groveland, to the point they have, it's time that something has to be done. And so that's exactly what the direction we're headed in right now. Thank you so much, and enjoyed talking with you. My phone numbers are on my business cards. If you have any questions, you can contact me by email. You can contact me by phone. I would be more than happy to answer any questions in regard to this matter that I can. Again, some of these matters are still under investigation. Some of the questions I will not be able to answer. Other than that, wish everyone a good day. And Anthony, thank you for having me here today.